either because we planted it or because we cultivated it. And in the case of our deer, we certainly have managed them better than just about any place else in the world. So we have a really great opportunity at this time of year. So, hey, y'all, if you got the radio on or if you're listening later on, we appreciate you. I see that we have our first kitten of the morning. Today is indeed International Pet Groomer Appreciation Day, so we want to thank Paula very much for that.
I think I wanted to go with that first just to open that.
Absolutely. Let's face it, somebody has to help us take care of these critters. No doubt about that. What are you doing in your garden this week? I'm seeing pictures already at supertalk.tv of pansies and some other beautiful overwintering annuals and some things that are overwintering in some places they'll reseed, some places they'll just come back, maybe not, but that's part of the joy of growing plants, isn't it? We have different kinds to take care of and different kinds to play with from time to time. Today, to me, because our weather is evening out all across the Deep South, if you have not done pansies, believe me, they're on sale at the Garden Center. Go get them today because it's going to be a beautiful year. It always is. We talked before about the silly resilience of pansies and why they seem to do so well. I have to say I'm appreciating the dog toys this morning. Speaking of pet grooming, this International Pet Groomer Appreciation Day. Really
he looks a little aggravated with that bat.
He looks like he'd like to tear that bat right up.
But like he's crept in the wrong spot.
That's right. And there goes the traditional, we're doing chili or gumbo today.
I don't know. It looks like beans in there. Looks like some roux for some red beans and maybe a starting point for some gumbo.
Something going on. It looks pretty good, I tell you. When y'all do this, you have to tell us what you're telling us. So we can, because
this is
otherwise,
one of Mark Patrick's here.
Otherwise, we have to celebrate Calzone Day. You know, that's another thing that's today. Oh, ryegrass. I made sure to bring in photo of ryegrass today so I would not miss asking you about yours. I had 3 people this week, Lance, send me notes and say, well, I don't know what Lance is doing, but he's doing better than me. In other words, they had sparse germination. They've not had fast growth. I think some of it is the variety. You chose a really particularly good variety.
You know, I think mine has had some struggles recently, mainly because of the dryness and the heat that we went through. I did buy enough to overseed it again. So it's, some of the density kind of died back. But I will say this, the longer leaf that I bought last year that I planted back behind the fence has been more resilient and grown better. So
it is tougher. It's not as pretty,
tougher one,
but it is. Like
so
many of us, we may
learning.
not be so pretty, but we're pretty tough.
I'm learning. I think there was a period where the ground just stayed extremely damp for a bit, and then it was extremely dry. The conditions seemed to be a 180 from one another for about 3 or 4 weeks.
Yeah, it is that swing.
I'm about to throw a little bit more seed out over some areas and just overseed it, but I might have even gone too dense to start with. Given the conditions, but now I think we're at that time where the weather is about right.
This is really the perfect, and believe you me, this is, no matter where you are in the Deep South, if your relatives are coming from Wisconsin, for the holidays, plant the ryegrass now, even if you don't do anything except your front yard, because it's so impressive when they drive up.
The overseed areas I did with the front yard and the side yards, they look phenomenal. But, I did that a few weeks later, and they've started to show
They had a better situation.
Much better germination timing, I believe. So, I think part of it, as I said, it looked really good. It came up strong. It was extremely dense. And then we had that 90 week and a half there where it was strong. I was watering it and trying. And, I mean, it was just very difficult to keep it in the right mindset.
Somebody else sent me a note this week and said, well, that particular patch of weather ripened the tomatoes enough to be able to pick them and bring them inside, but it didn't do a thing for the carrots.
Yeah.
Apparently the carrot leaves just fell over. And that does happen in a hot, dry patch. We have to be a little bit careful when we're growing those carrots that we're giving them the opportunity to actually develop, and sometimes that involves more water than we might want them to have. Than we might want to have to apply. But we really do have to think about that. You know what else is going on today, of course? This is the fall back.
Oh, yeah, uh-oh.
And it is such a controversial topic. You can, anywhere in the country that you go, there are people that just feel like this is perfect, and there's at least an equal number of people that say this is the dumbest thing, we need to just have one time and leave it alone. I don't know. I have to say, I would rather have. I would rather not have to get off work at 5:30 in the afternoon and have it be dark already. I get that.
Yeah.
Okay, I really do. But dark mornings are tough on me too. So.
It's it's going to be dark one way or the other when I get up, so I don't really care. It's really nice to have the later hour.
To
when
get
you
home.
work early, I think it's nice. So
I think it is.
We're
I think
also individual in the things that we want, and people's schedules are so all over the place
That's
in the
true.
world we live in today. I think it's going to be extremely hard to have consensus on, do you want it in the morning or do you want it in the afternoon?
Well, and the other question, of course, is why have it at all?
right.
I mean, obviously, until we constructed time and clocks and all those things, people just got up and did what they did and went on, I don't think it was as big a deal. Now, granted, in order for the trains to run on time, we had to know what time it was where they left and what time it was where they were going. I get all of that. I understand the math of it. But when it comes to, are the children going to stand in the dark, one end of the day or the other end of the day? Are you going to leave in the sunlight and come home? All those questions that come around at this time of the year. I don't know. Somebody's going to prevail at some point, and it's going to change. I just don't know exactly how. There's my prediction for today.
I'm going to roll with that. Like I said, we've talked about it so many times on the weekdays,
Sure,
and it's
sure.
one way or the other. It's some people like, yeah,
Do you agree with me, though? There's about as many people that want to change it as don't.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
it's just-
That's what I'm saying. It's a hard one
It's ongoing.
to understand because I think it's 50-50 in many cases on that one.
I think it is. Today is, and probably for all of us, there's a lot of times of the year when it's just about every day, but today is National Fig Day, and it's the whole week, in fact, so if you really like figs, you can impress everybody up and down the street and at the office, too. I enjoyed trick-or-treaters last night, but I don't think I could have given them figs. I don't believe that would have been quite what they were looking for, even though figs are sweeter than just about any candy that you would have gotten in your trick-or-treat bag last night.
My mama had 2 fig tree. They were always
Yeah.
loaded down. Made all kinds of preserves with that.
Well, and for those of us who are, I'm just not that fond of the preserves. I hate to say that. That sounds sacrilegious, I realize, for a Southern person. But one of the reasons why I like fresh figs is because they have a bite to them, and they're not quite as sweet than the ones that are preserved. The ones that are preserved are mushy for me. Now, on the other hand, if you open up a hot biscuit and shove a preserved fig in there, who's going to turn that down?
Yeah, she loved the jellies and jams were her favorite.
So, a lot of people do. I like them a little bit dry. I like them, and I also like them grilled. We were talking about grilling different vegetables the other week, and I think we haven't talked about fruit enough in that regard because that's also one of the things that's the best. Even at Waffle House now you can get your tomato grilled.
Oh, really? Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, Waffle House is one of the top end of the chain breakfast places. I was thinking of it. It was really funny.
There's no one above them in my opinion.
No, I mean, that's the top end of the chain there. That, and I would say, if you like a fast food place, Hardee's has a great breakfast, and Ward's. Those are the, if you're going into like a fast food place. But I was just dreaming on the way into work this morning about, Waffle House is probably really smart for not having the TVs in there because people would start showing up. Yeah, people would start showing up now for the 11 o'clock football game.
That's
I mean,
right.
it would be
That's
elbows flying, and it's already.
And they drink way too much coffee.
Oh, well, that and whatever you've got in you before you get there. But yeah, the videos of the Waffle House, the powwows are always a trip. So it's interesting that they've never put a TV in any of theirs.
Well, there is a huge horticulture element in the Waffle House. I don't know what they are. There must be a term for these folks, but they eat at Waffle House everywhere they go. And because they're in horticulture, of course, they're going around a lot, looking at people's plants, looking at their farms, looking at their grow ops and all that sort of thing. And some of the things that they find at Waffle House are just so intriguing to me. One of the best-looking denim caps I've ever seen was, everybody that listens here pretty much knows Alan Owings. He's a Louisianian who's all over the place in horticulture. And if you're on social media in plant world, you've run into him even if you've never actually met him. But he's a terrific guy this morning. He's got the dashboard of his truck with the Waffle House hat on it. And, of course, that's where he's headed because that's what they all do. And I understand that we have to find I'm sure that there are diners, other places where people just congregate. I'm sure there's other things. But in the Deep South, come on, y'all, it's Waffle House.
Waffle House is it. I've heard people mention the Huddle House, but I haven't
good.
lived in many places.
We loved Huddle House.
We
loved Huddle House, and there was another one back then too. But now it's all Waffle House.
Well, there was 2 sports things. That
Are you trying to give me this kitten?
No, it just keeps rotating. It's a cutie.
It keeps rotating into the SuperTalk.tv, y'all. This is too cute.
It's a cutie. But aren't they? I mean, they were so. When they're little like that, they're just a little ball of fur, man. I mean, they're just teeth
cute.
and nails and fur, and they have so much fun fighting your hand. I always love that about a kitten. They're like, I want to fight your hand. Like, bring it on, man.
Come on, what are you doing?
Do this all day. Well, hey, just because it had happened last night, I had 2 pieces of tidbits of information for you. One, the Dodgers evened it up at 3-3, so there's going to be one more World Series game.
Isn't that exciting?
Yeah, it's been an epic kind of World Series. And 2, I had a statistic for you that maybe you will appreciate, Garden Mom. I know you like football, and your dad had a little time spent coaching and such, and but
only half his life.
Yeah, just a little time, right? And I was curious if you have ever heard of this before. We were going through the scores last night, and Will was sitting in, and he found this. Shaw and Riverside were playing last night, 2 different teams in the Delta. Riverside had yet to score a point this season. This is their last game, I believe. So they had not scored a point all year. They still had an opportunity, though, although they had not scored a point yet, to make the playoffs had they won that game last night against Shaw. Shaw beat them 22-0. So Riverside goes through the whole season without scoring 1 point. And we were scratching our heads trying to think of a time outside of maybe COVID or a shortened season that we'd heard of a team not actually scoring a point. I know my dad in high school, his high school team, I don't think they gave up but like 10 or 14 points in a season, but I've never heard of a team not scoring. Have you?
Who's at the other end of that?
Man, I mean, that's a rough season. I was like, man, that you need to take that offense and chunk it. It's like if you've got a plan, if it's not working, just get rid of it and go somewhere.
Let's understand these things. There's a lot to be gained from camaraderie.
Yeah.
You certainly get a good workout if you go out for football, and it's probably important in this world to learn how to persevere.
That's right.
So that's about all I can say. But those 3 qualities are obviously in that football team.
Hey, man,
so,
I'll tell you, they're going to be great gardeners.
Exactly.
May not have scored a point,
they're going to be great at whatever they do. That's right. Because they understand things.
And they went through the whole season. That's the thing. It wasn't like anybody hung their hat up, said,
they didn't
we don't
leave.
play anymore.
Yeah.
We didn't quit. We didn't get our way.
It's intrepid.
Yeah.
It's not something all of us could do.
And I want to highlight that as a positive for Riverside, too. I know you didn't score, guys, but you played your season. You got out there. You tried. When you fell down, you got back up and tried again, and that's life.
This is old woman talking here, but the world is not about what you do. The world is about how you react to what you do and what happens to you.
That's right.
I mean, you can do a lot of stuff, but stuff's still going to happen. You might have been to every workout and, felt you had broken all of your own personal records for your abilities to whatever, pull-ups and push-ups and all those kinds of things that we measure. But you still can't guarantee the team's going to win. So
it's kind of like that 18-inning, the 18-inning game the other night between. See, I actually
went to sleep, got up, it's still on.
Same way. Yeah, it's like got up for breakfast. It was like, they're still playing. It's another game. I didn't know it was back in the
I had no idea. Yeah.
But I thought that with that, Toronto lost that game, and I'm like, okay. So I had a handful of people on the text line the next day. What do you think? I'm like, well, I think the Dodgers are about to win it tomorrow. And obviously, you got to play them though, right? You got to play the game. You got to get up and go.
I love that.
And so now it's 3-3. Toronto won those. So it's just, you never know. You got to go do it. There's something about that, the unknown out there. And
we have come a long way when powder blue and pink shoes can actually get to be, ready to win the World Series. I love that. It's just
I just thought those were.
They've always been just a little bit unconventional because they're in Canada, and that it's just a perfect opportunity for them whenever they get this club. I mean, it's been years since they got even.
I mean, and I'm a fan. I've always liked the Blue Jays. I was a fan of the Expos because I like the expansion of American sports into Canada. I mean, Canada's our neighbor, and
we always thought there would be teams in Mexico and Guam and stuff.
Yeah, I've always wondered kind of the same thing. It's like why have we not seen? Now I know baseball and football are expensive sports, there's a lot of equipment and there's a lot of land
Sure.
required and all that.
Yeah,
and
but there's a lot of
some
fans.
barriers to entry. Basketball seems to be much easier, but it's, again, I always like seeing that because those values, I think that we learn here. You get down, you got to get up, you got to play the game. You never know who's going to win. It just is such a life lesson, and I think our
Things are not going to go your way all the time.
Yeah,
no
soccer,
matter how
man,
privileged you are or think you are.
and soccer's great, and it's a worldwide sport, but it's just slow, and it's not. You don't have the struggle. I think that you have.
There's a whole lot of community around soccer that
It's a
has to
great
do with
sport.
what's going on while the game is on.
Yeah, man, those dudes have got the outfits, and it's a whole thing. It's
A
kind of
lot
like
of
our
that.
tailgating. They just do it during the
is.
game. Yeah,
I sometimes see soccer fans, and I think of my friends in the Raider Nation, because we tend to be a little out over the top sometimes too.
my
That's absolutely
cousins
true.
when I was in my young years, they were 10 or 12 years older than me, so they were kind of my idols. They were two brothers, and every time we'd go over to my uncle's house and Cully and Mike were there, we'd get out in the backyard, and I'd be like 10 and they'd be like 21 or 2. It was like a holiday or something. And we would always play football, and they would always have to be the Raiders, both of them, because they were. And the reason why,
Sure.
is they were the most penalized team in football.
Yeah, they
and
were.
that was the reason you chose the Raiders back in the day.
Well, those of us who had a crush on Kenny Stabler.
Well, yeah, my dad played against the Snake. Dad said that was the best player that he had ever played against. Was
And of course, I'm a Fred Biletnikoff person, so that y'all go look him up if you need to.
Snake was your guy.
Nathan says that his ryegrass, oats, and wheat are doing well.
Yeah,
That's wonderful.
yeah.
That's wonderful. Especially
Where
in the
do you?
pasture.
You're in the 601, so I'm curious.
Yeah, tell us
what
where
part
you
of
are,
it you were
Nathan.
in.
Smith County.
Okay,
Smith
yeah,
County.
everything grows in Smith.
That's true.
Grow people down there in that dirt.
I love this. My mama had some figs that were big as lemons this year.
Yeah.
I heard that from somebody else, and it was, we think of brown turkey being that little fig, but there are some that can get pretty big, We'll talk about it. This is the Garden Mama Show. Yeah, we've been in that position before, haven't we?
Especially back before GPS.
Well, I had a friend call me once and say, well, I'm in the ditch somewhere by Loosedale. It's like, uh-oh. But yeah, you got to go find out. I hope everybody's greens have done well. There's plenty more to grow and to eat. But there's just been some beautiful greens, and I'm happy that the figs are as big as lemons, I have not heard from anybody who's willing to try my roasted kale chips recipe.
Okay, yeah.
But maybe that was too
Roasted
much. Maybe that was just too much. I don't
That's
know.
ambitious, huh?
They're so easy, and they're so much better than wet kale. I don't know. Anyway, on to the world of figs, my friends. This is really, it's a great opportunity for me to talk about one of my favorite fruits. I will tell you that I'm not crazy about it as the preserves, but there's so many other ways to eat figs, and there's so many choices of fig varieties and fig types. We think about, if you look up, for example, the fig varieties for, let's just take the middle of the Deep South, Zone 8. You're going to see brown turkey, you're going to see LSU purple, you're going to see Celeste, all of those, which are just traditional and absolutely wonderful, wonderful things. But that's because we've been growing figs probably since before we cultivated cereal grains. We're getting into close to 12,000 years before anything else happened. The Neolithic era, there are figs that apparently were brought from place to place. The oldest fig tree, I hope it's still there, I don't know, is in the Middle East. They were able to determine that it was still alive, I think maybe 6 years ago, maybe longer than that. But at any rate, the point being that it's one of those things that people have grown forever. Families have depended on them both for sources of sugar and also, of course, for sources of just absolutely delicious fruit. And there's a lot of things to be said for having colorful fruit trees in your garden. And if you don't even like to eat them, somebody does. And figs are just a beautiful, beautiful tree. There's no reason not to do that. Even in ancient Rome, they grew almost 30 different kinds of figs. That's how precious they were to them. Now, of course, they didn't have sugar cane necessarily. They didn't have other sources of natural sweets that we consider ours. They certainly didn't have corn, but they did have figs. And that's one reason why you will see figs with skins on them all the way from bright green and ripe and yellow and ripe and all the way back over to the deep dark purple skins. But when you open them up, those colors are different too. There's some that are known as rainbows because the outside is green, then there's a white layer, and then the inside is pink. And when you cut them in half, they're pretty it's a twist of the mind, but it is a little bit rainbow looking. Some of them are known as meaty figs because they have a dense quality to their bite. Other figs, of course, will have a much, much sweeter, it's just pure sugar. Those are the ones that you will usually find out, maybe Kalmatas, you'll find them dried in a package because they are intended to be used as a sweetener. And then, of course, we also still have some that are just delicious, cut in half and grilled on the outside on the grill with a little bit of oil on them because that heightens their sweetness, too. So anyway, figs are a wonderful, wonderful plant. If you're growing them at your place, I hope that you have pruned occasionally. It's not a plant that has to be pruned every year, but if we're growing it and it is putting on 4 or 5 inches of growth every year, which it should be, you can stimulate more and thicker growth by pruning it in the wintertime. If your tree, for instance, you may move into a place and the fig tree is as tall as the garage, you may want to leave it that way if it's nice and thick and a beautiful tree because that gives the birds some at the top. Maybe they'll leave you a few figs at the bottom of the tree. But it's also possible to take off as much as a third of that tree in the middle of the winter if you need to. The other thing you need to know about pruning figs is that if they are damaged, you can take that off anytime at all. And for example, if you do prune in the winter, if the fig is one that tends to make a crop in June and a crop in September, October, you will only get that later crop most of the time. So don't be surprised by that. I do love figs, I have to tell you. I don't know that there's anything that tastes quite like that flavor. And that's why if someone presents you with fig ice cream, for example, even though there's no fig in you don't see a fig anywhere, you taste it and you know exactly what you're getting. Now you're saying to yourself, what? Fig ice cream? Yes. It's really good. It's really, really good.
Take your word on that one.
Cinnamon Day is today, and if I was really a pushy person, I would have already sent Cinnamon Girl to you and like 6 other songs using the word cinnamon because it is something that we celebrate as humans. We like our spices anyway, but cinnamon just seems to be one of those that has just enough syllables in it to be interesting in poetry as well as in music. I'm not going to try to convince people that don't like cinnamon to eat it, but I will tell you that there's real cinnamon and there's fake cinnamon. It's kind of like vanilla. If all you have ever had is the imitation vanilla extract, you probably don't like the smell or the taste of vanilla if you're like me. I like vanilla, and I don't grow the vanilla orchid, so I have to buy the actual vanilla, but you can get a better taste, a deeper taste, and one that has a lot more umami. It has a depth of flavor to it that the other type, that the imitation flavoring does not have. There's somebody out there saying, yeah, that other stuff's too sweet. Well, yeah, vanilla can be an intense one sometimes, that's for sure. One of the other photos that you will see today at SuperTalk.tv is a big old broken limb. I wrote a little bit about this in the newsletter this week, which, by the way, thank you very much, those of you who have already renewed your subscriptions and are starting to subscribe for next year. MamaOnAir@yahoo.com. Send me a note. I'll send you all the information about that. And the bigger question at this point is, if something hits a limb on your tree and knocks a part of it off and it's ripped up, should you do anything about that now? Yes, it's fine to do something about that now. The idea with pruning trees is that we don't want to prune a mature tree until we have to. And when we have to, oftentimes it's because something else falls on it, or lightning hits it, or something you may get insects in there, and the result is that branches fall off. Sometimes drought can do it. Sometimes simply the age of the tree can do it. They don't live forever, despite the fact that redwoods seem to. They really don't live forever. So it's important to know what you're looking at. But if you're looking at a broken piece, I really do like the whole thing of taking care of what you can take care of now. The biggest thing to tell you, though, don't paint what you cut. You'll see a product called pruning paint. It's still in some places, some garden centers or garden departments. It is not helpful. My dad had it. My dad painted every branch that he cut. He tipped it with that, because the idea was that would keep it from sprouting again, but that it would also keep the insects from eating into that part of the tree. We call that an opportunistic situation for the insects, because there's already a rip there. They're able to get in much more easily than they could if the branch was intact. But the problem is, of course, if you seal that up, then you get a whole different sort of pest. You get the anaerobic bacteria. You're giving really strong license to a lot of rot that just stays in that branch. So the research over the last 50 years has shown us that is not necessary to do. Why there's still a product, I don't know. I've known people that, there's still people, and I love y'all, but you don't need to spray the bottom trunk of your oak tree with white paint. You really don't. You can argue with me if you want to, and I'll explain why, but you don't have to do that anymore. So you still have people who will do things that Mama did, or things that Grandma did, or things that somebody else they saw did that seemed to work. And I'm not going to argue with you, but I will tell you the science that tells you why it won't work. So we can do both of those things. There's another thing that I wanted to talk about to you today, just to give you a handle on the whole business of what we are pruning and what we're not pruning. I'm not in favor of cutting down perennial plants until they have either lost their leaves or at least dropped some of them. But I realize if you're entertaining or trying to sell a house, you may need to do a little more trimming up, and that's okay. It's not going to hurt anything. For instance, if you cut the lantana back, the worst thing that would happen, it's still got leaves on it now, the worst thing is it's going to grow some more. Probably not going to be able to kill it, so I'm not going to worry about it. But if you do that same thing to a cestrum or to a purple coneflower, you leave it, it's in full leaf, and you go ahead and cut it now, you may or may not get the response that you were hoping for. It may have a hard time recovering. So that's all part of that same when to do it and how to do it and the puzzles that we get. So it's interesting. Oh, that's wonderful. I love this. Got the greens happening and waiting. Already taste the pot liquor and the cornbread. Yeah, well, by the way, I found a recipe for cornbread that I forgot I had. And it's like I have ones from when I was a child that were like this, and then this one was, I believe, fly wheel is the name of it. Y'all who know about this will know. The idea is that if you don't like cornbread, it's probably because there's too much flour in it. So in this case, it is half as much cornmeal as it is flour, and everything else is just about the same. It was delicious. So I'll leave that with you this morning.
Yeah, to think that an empire made it as long as the Romans did without corn.
Well, I mean, that's
impressive.
The reason, there are reasons why the people there wanted to explore the rest of the world. They were all looking for the spices that were going to keep things from rotting mostly, but they were actually interested in a few other things, and we're just lucky that they found the corn. Now,
explain to me breadfruit, though. I mean, the English were big on this breadfruit stuff. I'm like, man, it's a plant.
You want to know why?
Yeah.
Because you can put breadfruit in the hold of the ship, and it'll get there and still be exactly the same when you get on the other side of the ocean.
But what is it? I mean, like,
it's a fruit.
Okay, but what?
Yeah, it's a big old fruit.
Mm-hmm.
It's not particularly wonderful. If you get a chance to try something like something that has breadfruit in it, you'll find that it's a distinctive taste, it's pleasant, and it does fill up the jar, so to speak, fills up the dish. But breadfruit itself is one of those things that nobody had ever seen before, so of course they picked them and took them to Europe.
Yeah, it was a big deal.
Nobody in that world had
all
seen.
All the ships obviously were loaded with breadfruit.
Well, yeah, obviously the people who lived there, and they did use them for ballast in some cases. So that was part of that. It's funny how stuff gets around the world. We think about plants and seeds and animals and things getting moved from one place to the next, and we don't always get why that, how that happens. A lot of times it's simply because they got loaded in with some other cargo, and that just happens for sure.
People got hungry. It was there, and they said, hey, let's give it a try.
Good morning. What are your thoughts on teddy bear magnolias? I like teddy bear magnolias. I don't really have anything to say about them. Let me think about that, and I'll come back to you when I have another thought about it. Pretty trees, little trees. Corinne says that's interesting. She was having trouble getting her figs to ripen, so she put olive oil on the tips of them, and they ripened 3 days later. I've never heard of that. Somebody else needs to tell me. I'm going to hold on to it, though, believe me, because it's a great idea. Sometimes you go out and the weather's turning cold, and the figs are still on the tree. Let's go ahead and ripen them. The next thing will be, of course, to pick them and oil them and see what happens. Something to think about. Oh, this is good. In fact, I've got to do this myself. Laura from Flora has a Peggy Martin rose in a pot and wants to know if it's too late to plant it. No, you can plant that as long as you're willing to. If the weather stays dry, you will have to water it. And if you plant it, as I'm about to do one here, you're going to have to do a little bit of pruning because it's probably kind of ratty from being in that container all summer. But just give it enough start so that it can get to its support, its trellis, or whatever you're growing it on top of, your arbor or whatever it might be. But you're fine to plant roses, plant all kinds of shrubs now. The only caveat is, if the winter turns out to be really, 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 really dry, you will have to water every other week or so. Or if it's an individual plant like a Peggy Martin rose, you'll just have to keep an eye on it and see when it needs to be watered. She also says, if it's too late, can I trim it back and overwinter it in a garage with heat and grow lights? Yep, you can do that too, if you want to. I have a couple of roses that I'm not sure where I'm going to plant them, and they've been in containers for a number of years, so they're probably going to stay there. But yes, I will protect that container from freezing. That's always the big deal, is that if the pot itself and the soil in it freezes, the plant has a harder time than if the plant just survives the winter. So that's what a great question, though. Peggy Martin. We love that rose, that's for sure. There's so many crazy things going on. I'm always interested in things that keep your head going, things that keep your mind going. And here's one that's supposedly going to keep your body going. They have discovered the secret of life, yes, in naked mole rats. You want to know more about that? Send me a text, drop on the phone line, let me know. There's a lot to think about. I had no idea they were so close to humans in the way their bodies work. Stick around. We'll talk about that. Take your text and get a little more going here on the Garden Mama Show. It's really hard not to want to listen to all of that. I'm sorry. Welcome back to the Garden Mama Show. I got to tell you, the best thing in your garden is a friend with hands that will come and help. That is absolutely true. And if you can swap, a little, perhaps you do the shopping and they do the digging, or some vice versa. If you're the person who hates to go to the garden center or feels like they're going to buy everything, you can send your more fiscally conservative friend, and meanwhile get out and do the digging so that everything gets done. It's why we use gardening as a symbol of our community. We always talk about gardening being such a solitary action in many cases, and it is. Many days you're all by yourself out there, and that's really wonderful. But it's also important to get plugged into other people, and that's why this program and others like it have such long runs, and we have such an opportunity to be together. It makes me very happy, and I'm happy to say it makes you happy, because y'all, I hear from you. I also hear from you when things I say don't make any sense, and so please keep doing that. I appreciate it. Today is All Saints Day. I might need your prayers at this point. All Saints Day, of course, is a holy day of obligation for people in the Roman Catholic Church and some other Christian religions. It's really important to understand that the Halloween thing that frightens so many people is because they don't understand it's actually just the prelude to a very long religious weekend. All Hallows Eve, or what is called Halloween, is in fact the night before All Saints Day. And on All Saints Day, you might go to church, you might go to visit your relatives' graves at the cemetery, you might eat a big meal, take a picnic if the weather permits out to the cemetery, and really reflect on what it takes to get to heaven. It's a day to celebrate all those folks who did get to heaven. Some of them are known as saints, but some of them may not be. They're just everybody that who lived a good life and went on to a good reward. Those are all things that are, quite frankly, community building as well. And I have great fascination, great joy, and I really do appreciate being included in All Saints Day celebrations, even though I'm not Catholic. There's also another thing, of course, that we associate with the whole business of going to visit relatives, and that's putting flowers at the gravesite. And in tradition, of maybe 19th and 20th century traditions, not so much in the 21st, but the whole business of potted chrysanthemums was a big deal. I've seen people take pots of pansies, I've seen people bring silk flowers, but the whole idea is that you are bringing something to connect you with that particular spot, and also the pieces of the puzzle that are working to make that person part of your life even today, even though they're not physically on the earth. That's all part of what that's all about, and it's All Saints Day. That's the day before All Souls Day. So when we talk about Dia de los Muertos, we're talking about the Day of the Dead. That is Sunday, because that's the day that we celebrate that's the day that I shouldn't say celebrate, that's the day that we observe that so many people have passed, and we remember them. We take care of their graves too, so in many cases. It is an interesting one that people don't grow as many flowers so much anymore, but we were talking about that, a friend texting me about what was that flower that I put into the social media, and it was a big old chrysanthemum about as big as your head. And when those were the subject of your horticulture, those were called corsage mums, because they were the ones you put on, you wore on the lapel of your jacket, particularly women, but occasionally men, and they were really huge and fancy and really conversation pieces, and that's a neat thing. My mother wore those, and then they wore camellias after that. So it's a little fancier than I'm probably going to be, but I do still like very, very much to have those flowers around, even if I'm not actually wearing them. I was tickled to see so many pumpkins. My goodness. For a few years there, it seemed that all of the pumpkins were either stacked up and painted or they were plastic. And this year, I've been up and down 2 states, and I have seen lots of actual carved pumpkins. So that reminded me to tell you about one of the most fun projects that you can do. If you might be a teacher, you have a class, you might just do it in your neighborhood, you might do it with your Girl Scout troop. Get one of those pumpkins, and it's already open, it's been hollowed out, okay? Put some things in it. Put I don't know, put a Hot Wheels car in there. Put a donut in there. Put maybe a piece of Kleenex. Put some other plant in there. And then when you get it all nice and full of an assortment of things, bury it. Mark where you buried it so you don't forget, but bury it. Next spring you're going to dig it up, and then you will be able to show and have a demonstration of what rots and what doesn't. So the things that don't rot, obviously, are the ones that we need to figure out how to recycle or reuse or repurpose. And the others turn into compost, which we then get to dig into our spring garden. So it's a wonderful project that kind of takes the year through. It's like growing parsley over the winter, to use it in the springtime. It ties the parts of the year together in your head, particularly in a child's head, but it might be in a grown-up's too. And it's also the same time of the year when we are collecting seed. So sometimes I've seen people take seed from, for example, Asclepias or another butterfly weed or something, and put in there in that pumpkin. And sure enough, when you come back in the springtime, they've sprouted. So it's just kind of fun, just something to do, a little bit different project, one you may not have thought of to do, but one that is ever intensely interesting. Pumpkins, of course, as we have noted here, are traditional vessels anyway. They were before anybody ate the inside very much. I'm sure they fed it to some critter, but before they ate the insides very much, they dug them out to use them as bowls and spoons and dippers and that kind of stuff. So it's a logical use to make it a container, and in this case we're making it a container so we can see what happens. That's some fun stuff. I like that. There are an awful lot of conversations had at this time of the year of what are we going to do? When do we put up the tree? When do we do this? When do we do that? And I want to encourage you, you know me, I still want the gourds and the turkeys and the Thanksgiving things a little bit, but I know, it's coming. And who doesn't like some bright lights and a nice tree in the living room? So whatever you're doing, I am not going to be a judge of it. I will tell you that there's some critters I should have known about, and fortunately they're on the return. They're not extinct. People thought for a little while that they were, so I'm going to bring that to you in the next hour. I want to talk some more about cinnamon with you. I'm going to get some more of your texts, of course, because y'all are so kind to write to me. And we're going to have a chance to really think about what's next. You know, this is when people in the South tend to be busy in the garden, and at the same time we're trying to decide what tomato we're going to grow next year. So all those things make sense. Let's see, Kid Greg from Vaughn, we saw a burning bush. Can we grow this plant in Zone 8 in central Mississippi? You can if it is the euonymus, and I will look up the formal name of it so that you can be sure you're getting the right one. There are a couple of things called burning bush, and they are beautiful in the fall. You're absolutely right about that. So pretty. If I trim the limbs of the if I trim the limbs of the Peggy Martin, can I root it? Yes, absolutely. Root all the cuttings. They might not all take. One might take, but I do like to roll them in a little bit of hormones, stick them into some soil rather than trying to root them in water. Okay, all right. Well, y'all are so smart. This is fun. My name's Nellie Neal. I'm known as the Garden Mama, and this is the Garden Mama Show. Lance and I'll be back after the news with some more. We look forward to talking to you. You will have less success with it than they have in the places where it becomes a big problem. It's the same thing if you think about it. We talk about how monkey vine is actually not, you can't plant it in Florida because it has choked out so many things and has taken over so much space and is so easily propagated in itself. But we here who grow it in a hanging basket in Zone 8 or 7 or, further north, it's not really a problem. We're not taking those seeds into the world, and if we left them outside, they'd freeze anyway. So it's all a matter of place and station. I think it's a beautiful plant. You'll also see it as winged euonymus. That's another name that you might see it sold under, and it is a very pretty plant. I'm not going to advise you to do it, but I'm not going to advise you not to either.
Now, you said monkey vine, so do you think maybe those rhesus monkeys that's probably where they are?
Maybe that is.
They'll be swinging from some monkey vine. Yeah.
Well, and of course, I don't know how to tell you this in polite company, but the reason that they're known as monkey vine or monkey balls is because of the shape of their fruit, which is small and dark. So it hangs, when you put that vine on a pergola, the balls hang down, and they're very attractive for a moment, right up until they spread into the rest of your garden. But it's also
the usual
called,
suspect.
Yeah, it's also called tater vine. It has a very beautiful heart-shaped leaf and it's known as air potato. There's a whole bunch of names for it. Like everything, if it's popular, somebody calls it this over here and somebody calls it that over there. That's why those people meet every year to argue about the names of plants, so we can have one that we can all refer to and actually know what we're talking about at the same time. It does help. Beautiful garden. They sent a lovely picture. That was really pretty. That's lovely. Very nice. They are pretty. But they are right on the water, and that's going to send those seeds even farther. So, tough stuff. Mike, you are so lucky. Mike in Madison County. The dwarf gardenias are covering the sidewalk. Can I cut them back now, or when should I cut them back? Do you know how many people can't get those things to grow? You're doing
He's a lucky
great.
duck there, yeah.
You're doing great. Now, the reason that they're growing so well along there is because it is slightly drier than the rest of the garden, so it's not getting overwatered, which is a big problem for this particular gardenia. And also, obviously, it's warm enough and has plenty of sun because it's sprawling out onto the concrete part. I would say, I don't think this is going to be the best time to propagate, but if you decide you're going to cut it back, I would certainly try to propagate it now or whenever you decide to cut it back. Traditionally, we would cut that back after the first bloom next spring, but you may not want to wait that long. People may be stepping on it, So in that case, go ahead and cut it off and try to root it. It's another one that I would take a 4 to 6 inch cutting, take the leaves off the lower half of that, roll it in rooting hormone, make a fresh cut on a slant to do that, and then I would root it in soil, not water. So really, really nice one. Oh, snakes. Thank you, Mike. Appreciate that. Oh, my goodness. This is pretty good. George in Biloxi says, I'm thinking, can we all go with George? Come on, y'all. The little lady asked what we were doing today. That would not be the moniker you would give me, but okay. I said, I'm grilling drumsticks and veggies and Ole Miss football. I'll take the boat out later. Okay, George, we're in.
Sounds like a fun day. If the
ready.
Rebels win, yeah.
Well, there is that.
Always.
Okay, controversy. Yeah. Argument, LSU. Everybody's losing their minds over my alma mater. Guess what, y'all? It's like, I'm going to say the same thing I said about your team from Riverside, Lance. The reason you're on a team is because of what the team teaches you. It's not entirely about winning.
Oh, I agree.
Now, I'll grant you.
You paid $50 million, though.
I was going to say, the higher the stakes, the higher the risk, the higher the reward. But the higher the reward, the higher the risk, too. So I get all of that.
Well, I mean, you're an you're a LSU fan. Were you a fan of Kelly? I never thought it was a great fit, but he won won early, and then
actually, most of us are more upset about the athletic directors losing his spot.
Well, the governor wasn't too happy with him, and
that's I learned from a couple of political friends of mine that you step into that, you're going to step into that.
Ooh, buddy, man. Landry was upset.
And if you do, then all the feedback that comes from it is on you. So that's a problem. And it should just be football. I'm sorry, y'all. I know I sound so simple-minded, but my daddy, the coach, said it's all about the team. The rest of it is superfluous. The rest of it is you got to learn how a team works if you want to do anything in this world. So, anyway.
Do you have a favorite in the search other than Lane Kiffin?
That would be a good one.
If they named anybody else?
That would be a good one. Oh, speculation is rolling like the mighty Mississippi. I mean, come on.
What are they thinking? Have you heard anything since your
the loudest noise, and I'm going to say this, and I probably shouldn't, but the loudest noise is that the governor will have said something because he's making it about the agents for the coaches.
Yeah, it was a big time. Yeah, he was after Jimmy Sexton.
That's what I'm saying, that will take several people off the table that might have been interested. Yeah. So that's the biggest piece
Anybody that worked for or is under his guys.
Yeah, so, I mean, it's not something I like talking about because, again, it's not the team. It's all the other stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But if you take $54 million, you got to be aware there's a lot of stuff attached, so...
Well,
think about it. If somebody offered me $500,000, for example, to grow their garden, they would expect it to be a really good garden.
Well, and they probably wouldn't pay you, to leave.
No, and they probably wouldn't pay me until the garden grew something.
That's what I'm saying. So I probably wouldn't pay you to leave the premium value of that contract.
I know I'm a little ticky. Coach's daughter can't help that, but that's how that goes. Oh, my goodness. Back in the world of gardening, where we started out today, I don't know who sent us this magnificent picture. Well, it's a great picture, but the plant is magnificent. It is some kind of colocasia. Some of the leaves are going up, some of them are going down, so I'm not sure. But it looks like one of those things that you think somebody made a mistake because the container is dwarfed by the plant. Now, in this case, the only thing that container has to do is hold on to the tuber that is the base of that plant. So it's really not a bad, but it does look off. It looks like the whole thing would topple. It's just beautiful, though. I really love it. Somebody's got all those plants in the garage. Now, remember, you got some kind of light bulb in that garage, no doubt. Or if you don't, you need to, get that fixed. But somewhere in there is the opportunity for you to put in a grow light. And there are lots of grow light bulbs. Get them in fluorescent, the long tubular type, like in a fluorescent fixture. You can get individual screw-in that you put in a lamp. You can replace just whatever it is. But if you will give your plants that you're stashing in there in the garage for the winter, if you will give them a full spectrum light source just for a few hours a day, they'll do much better, and you'll have a better result next spring.
And if you grow 2 or 3 inches, then it worked, right? I mean,
exactly. You'll find that your dogs get hairier. No.
Yeah, I need to stand under that.
No, I don't think you're allowed. I'm sorry.
6'8" with hair.
Yeah, I was going to say no more hair, no more height. Maybe some more hair if you want it, but I don't think you need that either.
Thank you.
Today is National Authors Day, And when I
Like
read
Arthur, the movie with Dudley Moore?
no, like author, like I wrote
I'm
15
kidding you.
books, you know. And the
You remember
question-
those movies, though, right?
Of course, of
Golly.
course.
I did. When you said Arthur, I was like, Dudley Moore? I mean, those were awesome.
From what I hear, I know someone who just saw the Arthur movies recently. They hold up better than you would think.
Oh, yes. I mean, I watched one
Let's
a
face
few
it,
years ago.
I mean, I don't think we're going to ever watch 10. Okay, there's some of those movies from that particular time frame that are just too much. But Dudley Moore had a lot going on.
I love the 80s movies. I was watching one yesterday, Delirious with John Candy, and then another John Candy movie of that era. And the music was always so fun because like somebody wrote a song for just that. And they didn't care if it hit big or not. It was
they were all having a good time.
Yeah, they got paid. And they were just putting together some riffs for a movie, and it was really, I love throwing back to that stuff. And then you look at the outfits and everything and the plants and, I love the surroundings. It seemed like you had a lot.
It was very well shot.
Right.
Yeah,
well,
those things
back then, it was more normal. Like you saw when you went in somebody's house, there was actually a house plant. And there was something on the counter. And now it's so staged that it looks so perfect. It doesn't look like real people's homes. No,
it looks like AI.
Yeah. So, but I love seeing that. Where you got the house plant over in the corner that looks like it hadn't been watered in a week. In a movie, you're like, that's.
I have not seen it, but I understand that the documentary about John Candy is really.
Oh, I got to see it. I'm a huge John Candy fan.
So he has lots of fans, and I mean, I'm one. I'm just not as big a fan as some of y'all, but the things that people say about him are just the kindest in the world, and I think that says more about him than I would have ever known. Speaking of not knowing. I did not know that there was a numbat. I never heard of this. See, I'm not really good on my endangered species. Right now, there's someone who's about 10 who says, she should know that. It's on the endangered species list. Yes, I should, but I don't. The reason we have Numbat Awareness Day is because we have just recently reached more than 1,000 of them in the wild. And they were down to just a couple of hundred at the earlier point in their world. The Numbat is a marsupial. And I don't know enough marsupials, but this particular one, come on now, y'all, stay with me with this. It's a cute little creature, got a striped tail, Australia, outback area creature. The whole backside of him is actually striped and just beautiful. Their tongue is as long as their body, and they eat termites by the hundreds. We should never have let these go extinct, y'all. I mean, we need to hold on and do some more conservation for them. We need these guys. If they can eat that much termite, come on. That's a big problem.
Yeah, and you got the wombat also, and the numbat. The wombat is a little different, but the numbat is striped, like you said, really pretty. Kind of looks like a squirrel.
Kind of does.
It has a little squirrel look.
Has that marsupial thing that brings those creatures together. I like the pointy nose. I like the stripes on the face. It's a different looking critter. But because it's not that people didn't appreciate them, it's not that they were not cared for. It's that there were so many larger animals that try to eat them that we have to realize we have to help them multiply and continue their population growth.
Well, it was kind of like when the humans were living around the dinosaurs. You didn't have a whole lot of books written and there weren't a whole lot of buildings and things like that,
No.
Probably because people were getting eaten all the time.
I have a feeling we were losing population at that point. It wasn't the dinosaurs.
It's kind of like the numbat. Yeah, it's not because they weren't cool.
It's just because they're only like as big as a loaf of bread, or even smaller in some cases. But they are lovely, and they're really pretty, and I'm glad to know that they're out there eating as many as they possibly can. I love some of the scientific, botanical, in this case, animalic names that are given to them. Myrcobius fasciatus. That's wonderful.
Well, we had a great guest this week, and it was the herpetologist.
Oh, fun.
That came in on Mary's show, and it was interesting listening to him because there's so many different names for snakes. The same snake, depending on where you are and who you are. But as he said, the reason you have the scientific name is that you always default back to the reality that no matter where you are, or who you are, or what you like, this is the scientific name.
Yeah, this is the one that the people have argued about and finally agreed on.
Yeah.
That wasn't Terry, was it?
Yes, it was.
Yeah, Van de Venner, yeah. Hey, Terry. Great guy.
Great.
Smart.
Smart. Just a wonderful guy. But I found that was one of those that kind of pertains to what you're saying.
I love it because it's entirely true. We people live with our world. And despite the fact that we're now pretty well interconnected globally as well as locally, we still hold on to things that we like in those areas. For example, you will almost never hear anybody in Mississippi call that pink mum that's blooming right now anything except country girl. But you might hear Clara Curtis because that's also her name. You know what I mean? There's no reason for that, but that's what we do. We name things, and then we rename them, and then we overname them.
Well, living in North Mississippi in this tangent, you would go by so many old house sites where the house wasn't there anymore, but we would see, the lilies or whatever they are popping up. Mm-hmm. And people up there several would call them jack straws. Well, a jack straw, that's not what that flower is.
Oh, that's interesting.
But yeah, they would call that, and then they call them jump ups or other things and I never really knew what that flower, the real name of that flower is. The yellow with the dark green shoots that come up and it sprouts around the old house sites, and it's a bulb plant. What is that actually called?
I don't know.
Yeah, okay.
I have to look. There's 2 or 3. Daffodils will do that. Crinum will do that. Mm-hmm. They're not yellow, though. Yeah,
the yellow ones are the ones I'm referring to.
I'll have to. I will. One night this week, I'll wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning and think of it.
Yeah, well,
and I'll text you and tell
name.
you.
Yeah, I want to know the actual scientific name.
They
don't last very long, but they'll grow in bunches and tufts around, where people had old house sites back in the 30s, 40s, 50s, and it would just be everywhere. Beautiful, especially in North Mississippi.
Thank you, Ray. Appreciate you. He's giving me a little support for my alma mater. And
well, he knows how to spell "go" right. Especially,
that's right.
That's very important when you're rooting for the Tigers.
And most of us don't, pronounce R's too well in this part of the country.
What is it with the English? They invented the English language, but anything that ends with an ER.
I don't know that they invented it. They grabbed Teutonic and they grabbed Latin languages and put them, kind of smashed them together.
I mean, here we actually enunciate the words more correctly, but anything that the British end in an E and an R, that's an A to them. Like Boxa, and then anything that ends in an A is an ER. It's just one of those things. I guess it's like the South where we have different dialect, but I mean, like every English person you hear on television or whatever, anytime you hear
it's
an
different.
ER, it's always an A, and then anytime you hear an A, it's always an ER. So I guess if you want to be good at speaking the English way, you just got to use those two, because not many else.
Well, and then you get into that, and you've got 16 different dialect accents and things in the King's English, as it's called, in the UK version.
I love the word I heard. She was talking about the patio stones that were laid down, and the cops had to dig them up, and she didn't say dig them up like we would. She goes levering them up.
Because it took a lever to get them up.
Levering them.
I can see that.
Levering them. I was like, I've never heard of levering. I mean, actually, I know what a lever and levering, but it was fun hearing how they would describe digging or prying it up was levering. Levering.
I love this. Yep, Washington. That's true. Thank you, Texter. We got some good ones, and we call the miners or minners. We do it too. We mess them all up too, but it's because of locality.
Yeah, that's kind of where I was going with that.
A lot of the language that came into the Deep South, of course, came from specific parts of Europe, and at the same time, we embraced our influences from Africa. Otherwise, we wouldn't know okra and corn. Otherwise, we wouldn't have any association with Central America, except we decided to take over the corn, and then the poinsettias. Anyway, more to talk about. Stick around. We'll be right back.
That's for LSU fans.
You could have, It would have been better for both of us.
They don't love Kelly anymore.
Oh, it's true.
Perfect.
Something about Marvin Gaye, y'all. It's just a sad thing that we don't have Marvin Gaye to sing for us.
Papa Bear shot him, too. Man.
Yeah.
Bad stuff there.
Terrible stuff. Now, granted, I don't think Papa knew where he was at the time, but, still, it's a great loss to all of us. In getting back into this whole business between the teddy bear, Magnolia, I had somebody else send me a text and go, I never heard of a teddy bear magnolia. What are y'all talking about? We think about
Hey, you
magnolia
first.
We think about Magnolia grandiflora. That's the state tree of Mississippi, and I think the state flower of Louisiana, as well as Georgia or somewhere else. Anyway, it's a beautiful, magnificent tree. It's also 100 feet tall, so there's not room for those everywhere. So Little Jim was developed because it would only be 25 or 30 feet tall. It is a slight bit more columnar, not very much, but it's not as wide and doesn't spread as far across the property as the traditional magnolia does. Teddy bear is, for some will say, just right, because teddy bear is not going to be as tall, it's not going to be particularly wide, but it is a beautiful flower, and it's a slightly bigger flower in my estimation than the Little Jim one on a smaller tree. So that's about the teddy bears thing.
What's the best climbing magnolia? Because my mama had one in between her yard and next door neighbors. It got about 20, 30 feet tall.
I don't have I don't know a climber.
Yeah.
So
well, these things, I mean, they were just limbs everywhere, and
that's probably grandiflora in an area that has a little bit of shade, because if they're going to have
Mississippi.
Yeah, if they're going to get tall and be sort of flowers out at the end, it's usually because there's not quite enough sun, but they'll still grow and be lovely.
It was kind of stunted, but it was really good for climbing, and that underneath area, God, that was the most pungent smell as those leaves and the flowers would break down underneath it. Mm-hmm. And golly, you get under there and play and climb, and Mama would always say, don't be climbing that too high, but you could go to the top of that thing.
She hoped that you wouldn't, but you were going to climb
do it anyway, right?
I know. Yep, that's what we did. I was asked this week, what's the most dangerous thing you ever did when you were a child? My answer was, I jumped off of a roof. And the answer was, you mean from roof to roof? No, I was.
You weren't doing that jogging thing that people.
No, I wasn't. I was playing on a roof where the construction people had foolishly left a ladder, and all the kids in the neighborhood used the ladder to get up on the roof of the new house. I mean, who wouldn't do that, right?
Of course. I mean, that's like candy,
So somebody's dad came out and said, y'all get off that roof right now, and I was just this very obedient little girl. I jumped off the roof, hit the ground. The poor man had to take me home, carry me like Dorothy,
the early days of Johnny Knoxville, right?
Exactly. And my mother was kind, but not particularly happy, about what had happened.
A switch, but you got a cajoling.
No, I did, and so did he, actually. We don't yell at her a lot. When you yell at her, she's going to do what you tell her.
Yeah, Mama, we had this guy that would come around every blue moon. He lived over in the backside of some tenement area in McGee and across the tracks. And if we were playing outside too long or too late and we didn't check in, Mama would never get mad at us. But she would always say, Bracey's going to come put you in a bag. And
oh, no.
What? No. So every time he showed up, we went a-running, man. But
that's funny.
You know how it's different how we do things today sometimes. It's less shock and more love, maybe. And I remember as a kid, though, the way you were explained not to do something was usually in the shock and awe.
With the horrible thing that would happen to you.
There was some truth here that you weren't aware of.
Yes.
It's just different, I guess, today.
Well, we have a different understanding of trauma.
Yes,
and the
exactly.
Things that, things that stick with you like trauma. I don't even remember jumping off the roof. Mm-hmm. I remember waking up in my bed with a bunch of adults staring at me.
Like, are you okay? I had
exactly.
that happen.
Exactly.
A trolley. I went down a trolley. It was about 15 feet off the ground, and it pulled from the tree. And I landed on my
let go of that.
It landed on my head, and I couldn't count right for about 2 weeks. So that was my first experience with a concussion, and I was probably about 8 or 9.
Yep, and those things do stick with you, but trust me, they stick with the adults that had to deal with it.
Yeah, it was traumatic.
I'm sure it was. My goodness.
But yeah, I remember waking up and everybody standing over me going, hey,
See?
Are you okay?
Mm-hmm. Are you okay?
I don't know. Where am I?
Yeah, how did this all happen?
What happened?
Yeah. Isn't that funny? This is a beautiful video that I don't think we're going to be able to share with you because it's kind of big for our system. But when you think about ways to stack up the firewood that you want to last all winter, and it's another one of those, we got to recycle this, we got to reuse this, we just got all this wood. It's a really clever. If you haven't figured out how you're going to stack it up, it's a smart idea to figure that out before you start picking up or sawing your wood and stuff. Because let's face it, if you're not protecting it, you've wasted a lot of energy at that point. That is for sure.
My two dogs are really big on however you stack the wood. They're definitely going to unstack it for you as they look for whatever they think is in there. It could be a lizard or whatever. But I mean, I have restacked and stacked. So I'm going to look at this video and maybe they've.
They might help you. This one's got a lot of container to it. Once it's finally built, the whole thing is actually portable. So you might decide that's your way to go. It's interesting, fun stuff. I promised a little bit more about naked mole rats because we never talk about naked mole rats enough. Why are they named that?
Yeah.
Why are they named that? Because that's what they look like. Okay. If you're into hairless cats, you'll probably be into hairless mole rats because that's what they are. But here's the thing. The reason that some creatures live longer than others or live a better life than others oftentimes has to do with their ability to repair the DNA, because everything's going to break. But our ability to understand, and of course that's what a lot of studies are about anyway, is how do we make this so it's not as dangerous, so that this can be repaired. And when we find them in nature, when we're really happy about this, the remarkable longevity in the mole rats is actually tied to just 4 amino acids. What they did was, of course, was the way they were looking at it was that the protein shifted, the DNA shifted in the protein. So what makes that happen that allows these things to live so long, so much longer than anything else they're related to, and pretty much long as we do? It actually goes directly to that particular set of amino acids. And so once we understand this, the heterocephalus glabers, the naked mole rats, we have the opportunity to study a creature that has a great deal of commonality with our DNA that lives to be 40 years old in an environment where nothing lives to be 5. It's a wonderful, wonderful, 10 times longer than animals their size in many average cases. So since their genetics is close to ours, I think we're going to have to embrace the naked mole rats. They're going to help us out, fixing the damage, resisting aging. All of these things are things we want to do. I feel confident that any day now there will be makeup products including this magic mole rat, amino acid, and we will have famous people telling us that this is what we need to use, because if it works, well, that's what they're going to do.
Yeah, it seems that there's so many opportunities with the rats and mice, the world of it, the research they do, the experts, and DNA so closely resembles, but yet we still haven't been able to figure out that leap. There's a little missing ingredient in there.
There are several, and the deeper that they can get into studying them, that's the only reason. They may have known for a long time that it was a protein tweak, but they didn't know what it was that was tweaking the protein.
Yeah,
in this case, it's amino acids. But still, unless the creature lives kind of like a human does, what good does it do us to study that too deeply? Because we can't learn as much from it as we can learn from studying something that lives to be 40 years old. That's pretty amazing. Pretty cool stuff. The same enzyme, by the way, doesn't work the same in other creatures and doesn't work to repair the DNA. So that's the other part of this study that they have to figure out, is how come this works for the mole rats. I tell you what, they say God loves all creatures, and I know that, I'm sure that their mothers love their but they are some ugly creatures. I'm sorry, that's mean of me.
Beauty is in the eye of the beholder, Nellie.
It is. And if I was just a little sleeker myself, maybe I would have a greater attraction to them, but I don't. I absolutely do not. I do, however, have a couple of more plants I wanted to make sure I don't forget to bring to your attention today. When we were talking about burning bush, the Euonymus alatus, I did think about it. In fact, there's a photo somewhere floating around today of blueberries in fall color. So if you have not considered that, a hedge of blueberries in the full sun with enough water in the summertime will produce a magnificent flaming hedge. It really does look like it has been caught on fire. There's so much purple and red and orange in it that the leaves are just beautiful. Obviously, as the leaves begin to change their color, what they're doing is translocating their nutrients into the plant itself. So as the nitrogen comes off, they lose their green. As the potassium comes off, they lose some of the yellow. So it's just each one has a specific quality to it, a specific element that it is attached to. So when we're able to do that, then we understand that all of that nutrition has gone back into our plants, and it is part of the energy that I tell you is if you take care of plants in their early life, you don't have to do near as much later on. You might fertilize those trees again, those blueberry bushes, 10 feet tall or however big you've let them get, but you might find that they're getting enough from their soil at a certain point, and then all you have to do is just keep them neatened up. So that's one piece. Somebody asked me this week about the best house plants for cleaning air and that sort of stuff, and obviously we think of philodendrons and dracaenas, and we think of pothos ivies. Those are always terrific. But don't overlook scheffleras. Now, if you don't have a big corner to fill with a full-size schefflera, look for dwarf scheffleras. They're not necessarily small, but their leaves are much smaller. That's why they're called dwarf. And that particular plant tends to be bushier and thicker. Sometimes it's even variegated, and it's very, very pretty. But it's one of those plants that can live in your house for a long time. You basically dust the leaves off and water it when it feels dry, and it's going to have a long life and be a good air cleaner as well. So that's a couple of the things I wanted you to know about today. We had the questions about geraniums. Can you take them inside? It's really better not to unless you're in an ice pattern. If you're actually going to be below 35 for a week, you probably want to protect them in some way. Maybe that's when you take them in the garage. But geraniums can take a lot, and they are happier when the temperatures are 50 to 60 degrees, and that's why they're so pretty in the fall, and why they're so pretty in the spring. But they have a rough time at other points. I'm reading the crawl on the SuperTalk stream today. I hope you all are too. Telling me about some tree planting in Pass Christian. That's really cool. If you're doing that in your community, by all means, let us know. I love to talk about that. It's kind of like telling you that the Vardaman Sweet Potato Festival is going on today. I'm not there, but you should be. What a wonderful, wonderful celebration. Yeah, I tell you what, those greens look nice. My goodness, those pictures are pretty. That's lovely. So we've got animals that are smarter than humans. And now we've got a little bit of information that I've been kind of curious about myself. I don't understand why we don't know more about photosynthesis. It's like when we talk about we need to study more under the ocean, or we need to get deeper into the earth in understanding what is there. I think the same thing is true about some processes in horticulture or in science. We depend on photosynthesis. You remember when we began understanding, as so many people did not, that without pollinators we don't get seeds, without seeds we don't get crops, without crops we die because we don't have any food, okay? So it's the same sort of logic. If we don't understand photosynthesis and it's not working very well someplace, we need to figure that out, because that's how we get plants to grow. That's how we keep them growing over time, but it's also how we harvest crops. So this particular article from the Indian Institute of Science, which is IISC, is really, really, really good for nerdy people like me. They took a whole bunch of computer things, you study the studies and put all of that together to understand how photosynthesis actually starts. And what they discovered is that the energy inside the plants, which they knew before, only flows down one of two possible routes. Okay, so that design lets nature move sunlight with incredible precision. And when we understand how they flow and why it flows, these particular computer simulations let us understand where the higher energy can be and where the barriers are to it. And that, of course, is when photosynthesis happens, those barriers are removed. So it's pretty interesting. I don't know, I'm not an electron freak, but I sure do think they're an amazing thing to study. If you're into studying atomic level things, the electrons are certainly one of those pieces of the puzzle that makes a lot of sense. But why does that happen? Why does the energy only flow on one of the two possible routes, only one of them? Well, it's so that it can work. It's so the photosynthesis can start. And that, in fact, brings us to Caltech as well as the Indian Institute of Science. This is a decades-old mystery. I can remember people asking why this happened. Well, now we know a lot more about it. Oh, my goodness. The morning is... Ah, there's those blueberries. If you're at SuperTalk.tv, you're seeing some of my favorite fall color. There's just magnificent shades in those blueberries. They're so gorgeous. Really, really beautiful. Let's see. Richard's asking, this is a good one. Richard's in Gulfport. Is it normal for one of the plants, it's a heritage tomato, to look great, and the other tomato, a hybrid, to looks kind of ratty? Got yellow lower leaves. Everything's been the same. My suggestion is that the one that's looking yellow, look at those yellowing leaves. If they also have brown spots in them, then you're getting a blight, and then you'll have to just dump that plant or root the top of it and start over again with it, but get rid of the bottom part. On the other hand, it may just be that it needs more fertilizer than the heritage plant does and than the heirloom does. So I would try that. I would also put a little mulch around them. I'm in favor of mulching around vegetables anyway, and especially in the this fall garden, I think mulch, because we can be dry for a week and then wet for a week, it really does help moderate that soil moisture. You can be very effective in that. So that's fun. Yeah, now George is showing us the shrimpers coming in on the coast. Oh, it's one of my favorite sights. Absolutely. Absolutely. Glad to see that. They're having a good day. Having a really good day. Well, I have a question for you, and that is this. If you could only plant one thing, if you could only grow one flower, one vegetable, one whatever it is, what's your favorite one? Send that to me this week, mamaonair@yahoo.com. I'm trying to get, I used to have a list of popularity. I had people that, you'd say, do you like this plant? And you would get so many reactions that, no, I hate that plant. So instead of going that way this time, I'm going to ask you, what is your favorite plant? What do you like? Which, if you could only grow one thing, what would it be? And I don't know the answer for me yet, so I'm hoping to get some info.
I'm a rutabaga man.
Yeah, that's because you want to carve them into hats.
Yeah, I need a hat. That'd be, a rutabaga hat. That'd be
Are you
unique.
chilly this morning? You need a hat.
Yeah,
Bless your heart.
It was cool this morning.
Indeed it is. That's part of the best thing about this particular time of year is it can be really chilly in the morning, and then in the afternoon you're wondering where you left your jacket because you didn't need it, at midday. This is the big box next to the classroom door, so the kids can't leave again without taking their jacket home with them. Get you in a lot of trouble, folks. That is for sure. I'm just in awe of bison. And I'm not going to tell you that I've ever understood really what they're all about, other than I get why we have bison and buffaloes and why they're different and all that sort of stuff. But I didn't realize that we're up to 500,000 bison. Did you know that? I didn't know that. The most of them, though, are in private commercial herds. And there are probably 30,000 that are in public areas, but, they're conserved in that way. I had no idea. South Dakota and Nebraska have the largest populations of bison.
Nebraska? Okay.
Yeah, isn't that funny? That just shocked me. Oh, I think of Nebraska as flyover country for birds. I don't really think about bison, but that's because I don't know that much about Nebraska. I've only been there a couple of times. Montana and Idaho come in third and fourth on that list of bison populations, and I would have thought Montana was at the top. So the things we don't know.
Yeah, I wouldn't have put Nebraska in that grouping, but hey, it's a Midwestern state right there. I mean, I guess that's where they started. And
obviously there's more territory that's empty there than I think about. So, they got plenty of room to roam. That is for true. I was tickled. Somebody just sent me this. It's brush day. In other words, brush your teeth, brush your hair, brush your horse. That's what she said.
I didn't do any of those things this morning.
I did at least one of them. But it wasn't my hair, and I don't have a horse.
I slept in. I was not, wasn't moving fast.
Well, you know what? No, but that's why we do radio.
Yeah.
Somebody asked me not that long ago, they were interviewing me for something, and they said, well, why did you go into radio? The answer is because I listened to radio when I was a kid, and I thought that was just the most wonderful thing, that, you wouldn't see me. You would just know what I sounded like, and you could imagine for yourself what I look like, and the voices were just in the night. I mean, when I was little, I could actually hear Wolfman Jack from Del Rio, Texas, if the weather was right, So people hear me saying that and they go, the weather, yes, it did make a difference. It did make a difference. WLS in Chicago could be just as loud here as anything local, depending on the weather, So it's one of those pieces of the puzzle. I always thought it was fascinating, but I never realized I would have to be on television in order to be on radio. So y'all have brought me into the 21st century, and I appreciate that.
Well, my old buddy, Paul Gallo, my mentor, it was so funny when we would talk off air about radio versus what we do now. And
yeah,
man,
it's very different.
He would get so animated about when we first started the video stream and versus radio, and how difficult that was for him to embrace it. Because, like you said, it's something that
it's very different.
Decades you do it a certain way, and then all of a sudden you're on this screen. And I always found it.
Well, and if you knew you were going to have to walk in and smile at everybody, you would probably brush your teeth too.
Oh yeah, definitely. I'm looking at had the pearly white shining.
It's really funny though. The other change is that we have so much better technology and so much more of it. The first time that my radio program at another station far away was streamed was on dial-up internet. So you could sit there and watch it, but you weren't really going to see very much.
Bling blong, bling blong.
Yeah, exactly. It would catch you
sounds of
up.
our past that don't
So those
exist.
are all things. Yeah, fax machines.
The sounds of our past.
Computer sounding on, all those sorts of things.
Would you have a conniption or go into verklempt if you heard the old dial-up when you tried to do your Comrec setup in the morning? I mean, like if it all of a sudden you just heard.
I would think somebody was messing with me.
Because I would freak out. I'd be like, no.
Well, you would. It's your job. But I would think people were just messing with me. I would think,
no.
Don't do this. Don't do that.
Please, no more.
The other thing, of course, is that we have to be conscious that there are people who listen to the radio.
Yep.
So we are still primarily, you will hear me, even though I'm looking at pictures and talking to people in a text line, I'm still telling you exactly what I'm seeing. Because if I don't do that, then you're not going to listen to the radio. And really, the radio itself is the place where we can play with voices and be very different people from the people we actually are. We can put on accents and, practice those kinds of things. And
Nellie Neal, number 43 in your program and number 1 in your hearts.
Have a little fun just like that. Exactly.
I love the old stuff, like going back to the 40s and 50s newsreels. Those are so interesting, just to hear the voices, the differences.
Oh, goodness, yes.
How the enunciation
there
of
was
words.
A guy one of the first people that did garden radio was a guy named Ralph Snodsmith, and Ralph was a person of great knowledge, great radio manner, and he pronounced everything just like the person that you felt like never had left the Midwest. So a lot of things didn't come out like we thought we should hear them, but
had some hard R's in there.
Had some really hard R's, and understanding those kinds of things, fertilizer, just chewing those.
Mary would be like, I used to talk like that.
She did.
I rounded it off.
She's my mother was concerned that because we were in the South, we would take all the R's and throw them out the window, and we would all become mother and father.
Mother and father.
She didn't like that.
Daddy.
Oh, my goodness. Then there was Hello Mudda, Hello Fada, the comedy album. Sent her around the bean. She says, don't talk like that. Nobody will understand you. Fortunately, she raised me right, so y'all are able to understand me, and it makes a lot of difference in my world. Thank you very much. Come back again next week. We'll do this some more.
Garden Mama Show is a